Welcome to Sonic Booms and Advanced Microphone Tricks. What are we talking about in this chapter? Nothing really important, unless you're interested in how to have great technique with the boom pole, one-man band, advanced microphone tricks in general, how to record in a car when it's driving, stationary, whatever. We're going to slap your phase and have a little slap echo at the same time, and show you how to get great sound in impossible situations. Let's go. On Death Race, it's just like it's a rave of auto sound and guns and dialogue mashed into the sounds of cabins of cars. I mean, listen to that. That's so cool. And you notice the music has no bearing at all. There's music there, but you wouldn't know what it was if you played it for you all by itself. It has absolutely no bearing. It's just sound effects and dialogue. Let's check it out one more time, because that's just really cool.
We gotta get back in the race.
Lots of dinging and the car flipping. Beautiful metal bending sounds. And we'll talk about in the mix section why dialogue really doesn't matter that much in an action scene and how to mix it. But Death Race is a lot of fun if you like the rated R rating kinds of things. I love independent productions and I love being on their sets because there's so much energy and everybody's going at it 100% gusto, right? But it's really not a professional set unless you see this dead cat, on a boom pole and people are using it. Well, it's not really much of a professional set if that boom pole and microphone are pointed in the wrong place. And I see that a lot where, I've got two actresses. I'm just going to take that microphone and point it in the middle between them. Well, let's see what that sounds like. I've got this Sounic TM7, and I'm just going to point this between the two of them and see what I get. Go ahead.
Melissa, you know about the Bechdel test?
Tell me about that again. I think I do, but I don't remember.
So it's when two women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
Oh,
You think we should?
creative.
Okay. That is creative. That sounds horrible. All you're getting is a wonderful recording of the floor. And sometimes I see the same thing going this way. We'll record it from the floor up. We'll get them both. No, you're going to get an excellent recording of the ceiling. You need to be able to know when the actors are going to say what they're going to say. The first job of the boom operator is to keep the boom out of the shot. The second job is to memorize the script so they know when to turn the boom and reposition it actor by actor. Let's see what happens if we can get a better sound by, I'm going to keep it in the shot just so you can see the turning it online. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, action.
Melissa, you know about the Bechdel test?
I think I've heard of it, but remind me again, what is the Bechdel test?
It's when two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
Oh, sounds creative.
Sounds so much better because you've got high frequencies, a nice body, and you're going into on axis of a hypercardioid, which is going to sound beautiful. So, again, all microphones need to be in front of the noise hole. Otherwise, it's going to sound like whatever else it's supposed to not sound like. And it's the same with boom poles, especially. One-man banding is really hard to do. And I'm not talking about shooting people with rubber bands. I'm talking about doing the recording and the boom poling and maybe shooting, all of it. That's really hard to do and more than I really want to do. And if you're trying to do that, do it all yourself, maybe you need a few more friends. I don't know, but get help. And doing film by yourself is always a bad idea. The more things you do by yourself, the less good your production is. It's the nature of, camaraderie and collaboration. But if you must do the recording and the booming together at the same time, there's a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, if you've got any kind of back problems, I strongly suggest you get yourself a back brace and, help the lumbar, so that sometimes these get very heavy. And if you're putting them across like I am in this single sling, then that can put a lot of pressure on the lower back. If you're putting it just across your neck, well, be very careful, because that can easily put your cervical vertebrae out of alignment, depending on the weight of the bag. Then if you're doing a boom situation like this, the way I like to do it, if I put both hands on it, is I like to have it right here on my chest. It gives me a lot more balance, almost like I'm doing a squat, a front squat if you go to the gym at all. And I can support it for a lot longer with my arms down here than up here like this, right? That's not really, it gets, even this light boom pole with a light microphone gets very heavy after a couple of minutes, and after take, it gets old. But this disallows me from being able to get my hands onto the knobs and being able to watch levels. I can't do that. So the answer for that is found here, where I move it back like this. Now some people put it right here on their neck. That's bad. Don't do that. Talk about cervical vertebra problem. You're just pushing on your, in the kink of your neck here, and that's really, really bad. I like to put it a little bit lower down here, and I'm actually got it on the part of the bag strap so that it actually is not on my vertebrae at all. It's right where the strap goes. Then what I can do is go like this, balance with one arm out like this, and I can turn, I can move it up and down, and I've got this pivoted right here on my back, and I can do this for a very long time, even if it's extended really, really far. Now, guess what this allows me to do? Yeah, I can go like this and keep my hand on the knobs, watching the actors, memorizing the script, taking a look when they get loud, and when I know they're going to get loud, because I'm memorizing the script every take, la, 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 moving with them like so, then I turn the knobs down, I bring them back up. That's how we keep good levels, good recording, and our backs from being hurt at the same time. Now, when we're done, we never want to put the boom pole or the mic on the ground. That's just going to get hurt. We want to lean it up against something, or ideally put it with the audio cart. Back, there's usually a slot there where you can do that. If you lean it against the wall like I just did, it's going to end up on the ground eventually anyway. Someone will kick it, but since there's no one here but me, it's okay for now. But to save yourself and your gear, my strong suggestion is bring a C-stand over, or bring your own C-stand. And again, anything that's leaning against the wall is going to end up on the ground. But in this case, we take our bag and we can hang it on a knuckle of a boom or of a C-stand, and it'll stay here. And people generally stay away from C-stands with things hanging on them. They won't stay away from something leaning against the wall. They'll kick it. That's what people do. But hanging on a C-stand, people generally get, oh, I should steer clear of that. And then you don't have to pick it up. It doesn't have to stay on the cart if you don't need it to. And then when you're done and you're ready to go, shoot some more. It's that easy. And it's at your height. No picking up from the ground and all this stuff. So check it out. If you have to do one-man band, if you have to, and you can't get more friends, try this and see how it works for you. We keep saying throughout this education that the number one enemy of your gear is water. And that comes in whatever that package might look like. Straight water out of the sea, especially salt water, crazy, don't do it. Beer, dew on the ground, high humidity, but also perspiration. And when you're one-man banding, or even if you just got the bag on, you start dripping sweat down into your gear, you got a big problem. So if you're like me and you got no hair and it just comes down your face, there's no shame. Maybe I even look better with the bandana around just to do this. And, you can take it off and dab whatever you want to put. If you got hair, and that's okay too, you can just put this thing around your neck and just, it's not very fashionable at the gym, but it saves your gear from getting drips of salt water, which is what your sweat is, the worst kind of water. Maybe acid's worse. Anyway, it keeps it off your gear, right? There's also a thing that you can do if you have sun and you're outside and you can't see the LEDs on your whatever your gear is, the LEDs aren't bright enough, you can get a little windshield that's see-through, tinted. You can get them all kinds of places. It doesn't have to fit anything. You can just gaffer tape it on your bag. But that way, you've got a shade, and it'll shade the sunlight from being, blasting your gear. It also keeps your gear from getting too hot, which is also super cool. So some kind of a sun shield a sunshade. And ideally, you cut it or have it cut, or it just is that you can just stick it on the top of your bag, and that keeps things a little cooler in there while you're working outside. These next chapters are really advanced microphone tips and tricks, things that I've been doing for years that you don't really see in textbooks, and things that my buddies are doing that are like way out there, secret tips that Hollywood pros use all the time. We have a lot of fun with these, but they're also sort of non-intuitive. So definitely watch through as much of it as you can, and it'll start making more and more sense the more of it that you watch. Let's roll. Now, you heard me say before, don't use on-camera mics. I mean, unless you're doing ENG or you're doing action footage, you got to run around with the camera. Obviously, you got to use them. But let's check out some of the issues that show up in terms of delay and phasing and more with using an on-camera mic. In order to demonstrate the difference between in-camera mics versus on-camera mics, we've set up this Canon C100 with its stereo cardioid condenser microphones that go to the built-in analog to digital converters. And we've mounted a Sounic TM7 on the camera. Now, right now you're listening to me on my lab in this reasonably large studio room. It's the Sounic V-Mic Link 5, so we're going at 5.8 gigahertz, which is nice. It's close to my noise hole, and that's fine. But right now, if we listen to the TM7, you're going to hear a little bit more of the room. That's true, but it's also really clean, really crisp, and it's a pretty good sound. Even though I'm about, 6.5 feet from the mic or something like this, it's a pretty good sound. But if we switch to the C100 mics, you can hear a huge difference. Now, granted, it's stereo, and that's nice. But the nature of these microphones is not to point directly at anything, although it's sort of focused towards me, towards the front of the camera. It actually is picking up everything from all over the place, and it's just not suited in any capacity, in any way, to pick up dialogue from a subject, maybe even for reference. Now, maybe if you were doing ambiances or something like this, they're actually pretty good condensers, and they sound okay. But not if you want to do reference for dialogue or talent. You have to use a hypercardioid. And back to the TM7, you can hear how much better this is, how much more useful it is. Now, I don't recommend that you put microphones on cameras. I more much recommend that you use your lavalier and listen to how much better this sounds even over the TM7, and I'm only at 6 feet. If I got further back, it would exacerbate the sound of the room, even in the TM7. But notice the difference. The Canon C100, the Sounic TM7. Huge difference. The V-Mic Pro has an excellent hypercardioid polar pattern. It takes 2 AAs. It has a headphone out and a camera out, TRS 3.5 millimeter, that goes right into your camera or into any other secondary recording device that you'd like. It also has a low cut filter and a wonderful high shelf filter and a bunch of different volume output choices if you'd like. Let me just see here if I can find this. This is the high filter with it off, the high shelf off. Check 1, 2, 3, sibilant, sibilant, and with it on. Sibilant, 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 1, 2, 3, off. Sibilant, 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 and on. Sibilant, sibilant, sibilant. With the high frequency shelf on, it becomes an incredibly bright but really broad-bodied microphone. Not something that you would typically see putting on a camera. You usually see something with a lot more edge and missing the low frequencies. But this has a really lovely body and does a great job of rejecting stuff from the side. I mean, this doesn't sound very good at all. But when you get right on point with it, its incredibly narrow hypercardioid polar pattern really makes a great sound. This is the Sounic V-Mic, which, you would think, oh, it's V-Mic as opposed to V-Mic Pro, so it should have a lot less features. Well, it actually has exactly the same features as the V-Mic Pro. But what Sounic has done is created a completely different sounding mic, which gives it a completely different use. This microphone has a lot more brightness, a lot more edge for really picking up dialogue. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So when I go into this here, you can hear the difference between this one and the V-Mic Pro. The high shelf off, check 1, 2, 3, sibilant, sibilant, and with it on. Sibilant, 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 1, 2, 3, off. This has a lot more upper mid frequencies, a lot more edge specifically for dialogue, and because it's a hypercardioid polar pattern, still has that really great rejection that's here. Now it also has the high frequency shift shelf, if I can find it here, there it is, which once you engage it, gives it even more high frequencies and a really great sibilant coverage. Sibilant with it on, sibilant with it off, sibilant with it on. With it on, you get a really great, it's not flat at all. It does a lot of boosty stuff to really get powerful, clean, and crunchy even, just kind of really beefy sounding dialogue. Now, you remember how we said never put a lavalier behind somebody's shoulder and how silly that is, right? It sounded terrible before. Well, let's try it again, and it might work in the right situation. So I'm going to grab this here, and we're going to put it, let's turn you here, and we're going to put it back here behind the shoulder so that you can't see it from the other side. Now, this will work in what I call the television 2 shot. You know, the shot where, she's my wife and she's angry, I've done something wrong, and the camera's over there, and she's talking and I'm talking, but she never turns around to look at me. That never happens in real life, but it does in television, right? So I'm like, but I'm really sorry.
I don't care if you're not sorry. I'm mad at you.
Yeah, you're mad. But for me, this is the perfect mic. It's right in front of my noise hole. Now, it's not so great for her, but it's a microphone for me. And if we wanted to hide a mic with me, you can't, because one, I'm bald, so you can't put it in my hair. And the camera's on me and we're looking at all of this. We don't need to mic her per se, because there'll be a shotgun right off camera getting her. So this sounds so great for me. Again, microphone is in front of the noise hole, and that's great. It's a weird place to put a microphone, but here's an even weirder one. So turn around again. I'm going to grab this here, go into your arm, put it right back here on the lapel. So now it's a good placement for her. But if the camera's back here and it's on me, like it's over her shoulder, but it's on me, this is actually a really great microphone for me. So now we're still in a fight, but I finally come around and I'm like, but you don't understand. I have to go out with the guys.
But there's going to be ducks there.
Ducks, no ducks. It's actually a good microphone for her, and it's really good for me because it's outside of her chin shadow, so it's on her lapel, and it's direct line of sight to my noise hole, so it could get us both. Now, this is a really weird thing to do, but the camera doesn't see that there's a microphone here for me, and it certainly doesn't see it for her. So wherever the noise hole may be is where you want to put that microphone, and it may be in strange places, right? But whatever that is, get it there and, have no shame and see how it turns out for you. One of the most fun things about post-production is doing Foley. Foley is a gas. I mean, you get to get dirty, you get to get all kinds of stuff like gravel and sand and dirt. You get to come home from work and go, yeah, I had a great day. But it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money. And if you could get the Foley while you're on set, that would be better. Plus, you'd get the performance of the actor while it was happening. You wouldn't have to re-perform it or anything else like this. But you have to hide a microphone. So you can't do it with all shots. But let's say you had a situation where there was a love scene and you were shooting from, busts up. No pun intended about busts. But, from here up, you could theoretically get the legs and get that microphone in there so it's out of the shot. So Becky here's in a bed, and if she moves her legs, not yet, but in a moment, right now you're listening to my lav, you'll see how little a lav wants to pick up Foley. Go ahead. Yeah, it doesn't pick it up very well at all. You get a little bit of it, but for dialogue purposes, a lavalier isn't really very good at all. Here we've got, let me bring this over. This is the Sounic TM7 with their UW9 wireless transmitter. Totally dope, no cables, just move it around anywhere you want. And of course, we're on a boom pole. So now, move. So great, right? Sounds so much better, so much cleaner. And I've got the high frequency shelf engaged, so you get a lot of really great high frequencies, which is totally great. Now, you could do this while the actors are talking. The issue being that you may have some issues with phase because, that dialogue is going to get into this microphone. And some of you were like, well, you always said never record or never play back multiple mic sources on a single sound source. And that's true. But since Foley is going to be so low in your mix, mix very low, the dialogue isn't going to show up in this. Plus, it's doing a great job of rejecting any of the sound that's not happening on axis. So check this out. Watch what happens, how great this is if she gets out of bed. Just kind of step over here. And then get back in. Beautiful. I mean, if you could get her to do this 30 times, you could make yourself an in and out of bed Foley library. How dope would that be? And then just drop it in everywhere you want it to go. So you can get Foley. You can even do this. We did this actually with the beach scene where we actually had a Foley mic with our actor while he was walking, while we were shooting, just doing the intro that he was walking in the sand so that we could have actual live Foley while we were shooting. It was made Foley so much easier in post. So consider doing this. It'll save you time in post, a lot of time and money. I mean, it's fun to do Foley, I get it. But if you can avoid it and do get it while you have it on set, it's so much better. And you don't have to re-perform it. I'm here at my favorite recording studio in the whole world for mixing, Soul 7 Mix and Post, or soul7post.com. It's here in Los Angeles, California. Beautiful sounding room tuned by Dolby powered with JBL speakers everywhere. It's fantastic. And I've mixed quite a few projects here. And it's the perfect place for us to answer the age-old question, should I use a lav or should I use the boom mic or the shotgun mic in the final mix? So right now, I've got the NTG3 in this blimp, and it's it's a wonderful microphone. It has a lot of presence. It makes you feel like you're there. It's got lots of sizzly, good high frequencies. It also does a really good job of rejecting sound when you go to the side. It's a beautiful sounding mic for presence and, again, kind of realism. Now the lav, we'll go to the lav. It's a very flat response, omnidirectional. And to me, a lav gives you maybe not the kind of realism that you want, but because of its proximity to the noise hole and because omnidirectional microphones don't suffer from proximity effect, that means that I have sometimes the maximum latitude to add high frequencies, mid frequencies, bass frequencies, whatever I want, because it's generally a flatter response and it's closer to that noise hole. You know, on an 18 millimeter wide shot, you're not going to be able to get your NTG3 close enough to the subject to really make a good sounding recording. Even though it's a good microphone, distance and noise makes a difference. And of course, you can't tell right now, although we are under the main flight landing path for Burbank Airport, you know, hey man, this room's completely well tuned and completely isolated. But on set, it's not the same thing. For me, I tend to gravitate toward lavalier microphones if there's not rustle going on. Most people that I know go towards the lav because it has that realism. But personally, I'd like to have a flat response that I can add realism to in post. But that's just me. See what you think and talk about it on the blog. Here's something else. Get them to speak into something that's absorptive. Something soft, something that is non-reflective, that will help deaden their reflection all over the room. And that can be a long way away. Here, we're actually in an anechoic chamber where there aren't any reflections. Pretty ideal for having everything sound great. But on set, even if it's a far, long way away, they can talk into that direction and their reflections of something soft are going to be diffused or absorbed or deflected all around, and it doesn't go around the room that much. The other thing you can do is have them not talk in a direction that has the microphone have to point at that noisy thing, if there is a noisy thing. So like, let's say there's a compressor or a refrigerator over there. If they're talking at the refrigerator, that's actually good. Why? Because if you have a hypercardioid, it's pointed at them, not at the refrigerator. But if we have to turn around, now this is pointed right at that refrigerator. So they can talk 180 degrees away or otherwise toward the refrigerator or the offensive sound. That's good. Really good, in fact. So check it out. When you're doing ENG or any kind of news coverage, you know how they always got some kind of a dynamic microphone and they're going back and forth with the client or your interviewee? That's cool, but there's a couple problems. First of all, check out the difference between what this dynamic microphone sounds like and what the lav that I'm wearing sounds like. A massive sound difference. And the other problem with using a dynamic microphone is that when you have to go back and forth, check out what it sounds like. You get all kinds of weird noises and bounces, and things like that. If we can avoid recording bad audio, we want to. So what you do with your dynamic microphone is just get rid of the plug. Now it's just a dummy microphone, and you're picking up all of the sound that you need from the lav that's on your client or your interviewee or the actor that you're shooting. Way better sound, way better situation, and way more freedom, because then they can get up and run around on the camera and you're not trying to find them with a microphone. Some people get confused about voiceover. How do I do it? Do I need different equipment than I did with ADR? I'm not sure how the process works. Well, the good news is ADR and voiceover, the process is almost identical and the gear is almost identical. Except for in ADR, we use a screen because you're going to want to match lips on camera or waveforms or whatever. And we show you how to do all of that in the effects volume. But voiceover, it's the same thing, except it's sort of wild. You don't have to do it to time. I mean, maybe you need an in and an out point, but you don't really need a screen for that. As long as you have really great condenser microphones, ideally large diaphragm condenser microphones like my custom-built DR747, or if you really need a high energy, high frequency, punchy sound, then you would use a small diaphragm condenser like this Sounic NV5. What this is sort of simulates what both ADR and voiceover need, which is a nice, quiet place to do your recording. This is sort of a makeshift Velcro put together thing you can buy on Amazon. That's what we would classify as a Porta Studio. And what it does, all these little triangle foamy things, is it diffuses and absorbs sound that's bouncing around here in the room, and also makes sure that there aren't any reflections that happen in here, so that you're getting as dry a recording with these microphones as possible. Basically completely taking out the 5 parallel wall issue that we have here, and it's just as dry as possible. Now you can simulate this, especially for voiceover, ADR, or Foley, in your closet. If you've got a walk-in closet and you've got a lot of clothes in there, that also defeats at least the 4 walls parallel problem that, create reflections and things. And then if you have carpet in the closet, or if you've got some kind of rug you can put down, that takes care of almost all of the ring and the weirdness, and you can go to town creating great voiceovers, even ADR in there, and certainly Foley, which we show you how to do in the effects volume. Now, some of you are going, well, wait a minute, if I have my laptop in there and I'm recording quietly, and that's nice, but my laptop makes a lot of noise. It makes fan noise when it gets hot, and it always gets hot when I'm running video and certainly sound. But the good thing about laptop fans is that they're constant. They don't really turn off once the computer gets up to temperature. And we can always get rid of constant noise in Adobe Audition or in other programs, which is super dope. And if you've kept the microphone the same distance and the same microphone, and everything's been the same in your process, you can batch denoise all of the files that you recorded in both Isotope RX and in Adobe Audition. It's so great. You just hit a button, go have a coffee, they all get nice and clean, and now you can go to editing. It's so great. Again, typically we don't use a screen when we do voiceover. Sometimes it's helpful, especially if you have to do a voiceover in the middle of dialogue. And that's what I want to demonstrate for you right now. We're going to use the action piece where our heroine is listening to her, the dispatch telling her what to do. And we need to do a voiceover that fits within her lines. Then we want to use a screen because it has to line up. So we're going to do this recording in Adobe Audition. I'm going to use the DR747 because it's a nice big fat diaphragm for me. The NV5 for my voice is just a little too high energy for me. And by the way, which microphones should you use? Well, it's always a good idea to test microphones if you've got more than one. Now, if you've got one, use it, But if you've got a small diaphragm, even if you've got a really great sounding dynamic microphone, a large diaphragm, or multiple versions of it, try out each with your talent to find out which one innately gives you the sound that you're going for, not the best sound. For voiceover, you want the sound that you're going for. And if you're doing a trailer and you really need that edgy kind of sound, the NV5 is going to deliver that to you in spades. But if you need something that's, more round and powerful, kind of, flat, not flat bad, but flat like, all bandwidth, then something with a large diaphragm, like, this 747 or any other large diaphragm microphone, is going to be a better choice for you. So back to the voiceover we're going to do here in a second. I'm going to do the voiceover. Why not? I'm here. I'll just do it. You'll forgive me. But we're going to do this in Adobe Audition. I'll show you the process that I use for doing voiceover. Let's roll. Negative arrow, lose your tail, and head to the LZ. Okay, let's try it. So we're going to do a little recording. Shift, space. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. Now, that was too fast, right? I spoke too fast. I'm going to undo. Try it again. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. Now, that's pretty good. Let's just save it. I'm just going to drag it up and mute it. And we'll try it again, just so I have 2 takes. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. And that works pretty well. Let's try the next line. What the heck? So we're going to go find it. It's a long walk home, long bow out. Yeah, let's try it. It's a long walk home, long bow out. Oh, I need more time because the line is longer. It's a long walk home, long bow out. Okay, let's try it. It's a long walk home, long bow out. So I got to read it a little bit faster. It's a long walk home, long bow out. That one's pretty good. We'll keep it. And we'll do another one. It's a long walk home, long bow out. I'm going to do one with a smile, just like he's making fun of her. It's a long walk home, long bow out. And that works. There's your voiceover done. Now let's take a listen to it back, the whole thing. You notice that when I cut this in up here, it made a nice little crossfade for me. So we're going to turn this off. We're going to turn that off. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. It's a long walk home, long bow out. All right, cool. Now, in the world of mixing, naturally, what I need to do is add an EQ because it's supposed to sound like, he's in her head. And so we'll just go to a nice parametric EQ like this. Let's see. Any presets in here I want to use? Old time radio. What's that sound like? Negative arrow, lose your tail. It's okay. How about generic high pass? Negative arrow. Nah, we can make our own just as fast. So to make this kind of phone sound, we basically want to do, let's see here. We want to accent those frequencies that phones back in the day used to accent. And that was pretty much mid-range. So we got to kill off all of the high range. So I'm going to take the high pass and the low pass filters. I'm going to make a real mid-rangey sound like this. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. And we're pretty close. We're pretty much there already. So now we want to add a little bit more to make it even worse. I'm going to take a band here and I'm going to boost these frequencies like this. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. Maybe a little bit higher in the frequency spectrum. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. Naturally, that's super loud, but that's okay. That's what we have a fader for. Then we need to add a little distortion. So let's use the Audition distortion. It's kind of an interesting way of doing it, but if we draw a little dot here and make it go here, and this one kind of go here, we get a pretty cool effect. Now I'm going to turn this down, otherwise we're going to all be wearing speaker cones. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. If I make it go up here a little more. Negative arrow, lose your tail, then head to the LZ. So we're getting there, right? It's starting to sound like a little communicator device in her head, and we might, and when we get into the mix, add some cool things like choruses. Negative arrow, lose your tail. So it gives you the idea of what's possible there, just fooling around. Obviously, we wouldn't do this in a voiceover session, but it's cool to see that and cool to see that it could work. When you're doing voiceover with a digital audio workstation, one of the things you have to keep in mind is buffer size or sample size. And every digital audio workstation has a little bit different way of doing this. Well, what is that? It's the time that a computer takes to process the audio that's coming in versus sending it back out to you so that you can listen to it. And that's in milliseconds. But when you go to preferences on your digital audio workstation, and everyone's sort of different about it, it's going to be rated in samples. And 128 sample buffer size gives you X amount of milliseconds of latency. And that's a delay between the time you speak on the microphone and you hear it again through your digital audio workstation back to your headphones. And if you have that really, really long, like 10 milliseconds, 15 milliseconds, even more, that can be really disconcerting. It's sort of like the delay, when you're at the airport, the white zone is 4 low ding, and it becomes very difficult to even think, if you've ever tried to talk with a delay. And if it's not you doing it, your talent's just going to go, hey man, I don't know what's going on. So you really have two choices. One, you can use any of the routing features of your audio interface because your computer won't have it. To route the sound directly from inside the interface right back out to your talent. Or if you must go through your digital audio workstation, then you need to reduce that sample size, that buffer size as low as possible without lugging down your computer. Typically, if you've got a reasonably modern computer and, it's not, filled with viruses, that number is going to be 128 samples. Now you can go lower, 64 if you dare. It just becomes harder and harder on your CPU, on your processor. There's usually a 32 buffer setting, but it's usually you're going to end up with crashes and it's really unnecessary. So 128 is where I'd start. I wouldn't go past it like 256 or 512. It's just going to be gaga. I went to the store. And it's going to drive people crazy. And worse, it might make your actors start getting out of sync. Even if you're just doing voiceover, it starts making them do weird things with their speech because they're hearing it. So a 128 sample buffer size, whatever sample size that is, start there and reduce down to 64 and see if you can get that latency as small, if not imperceptible as possible. Or route straight through your audio interface and right back to your talent. Doing voiceover is a gas, right? You can see how cool it is. You're just like creating new stuff out of ether, which is kind of all we do anyway in independent media creation, right? When you're doing voiceover, just to sum up, it's the same kind of thing as ADR. And I just emphasize that you take the time to use the right microphone. Test different microphones and find out which one is the right sound for what you want, not the right sound for the voice. Again, if you've got somebody, you could have James Earl Jones walk in, with his, Luke, you're not my father, whatever. Yeah, Luke's definitely not his father. That's so weird. But if you want him to be in a drama, you don't want to use the microphone that's got the big giant sound. You want to use something that's got a little more nicety to it, maybe a smaller diaphragm condenser. But if you want him to be gigantic big, then you're going to use the big diaphragm condenser. Anyway, test the microphones, get the sound that you want, and then use that one for that actor only. New actor comes in, new test, log your microphones, and you're going to start to get a real good sense of what microphones tend to create what kind of sound. And then you'll usually just get the right one right off the bat after some experience. But check it out for yourself. Come on to the cinemasound.com forum and tell us what your experiences are with your microphones in the record section, because we'd love to hear what your experiences are and just create a common knowledge about everything that all y'all are doing. Why would we do Cinema Sound? I mean, we could be at home sipping Mai Tais right now or watching the ball game. We don't have to be here doing this. Well, first of all, we love audio and we love creating independent media. But to be able to share it with all of you is even more fun and even more of a love for me personally. And so we created Sound Advice first, for those of you who have been on the Sound Advice tour. But where did it really start? Where did it really begin? Why? Why would you do this? Well, there was this little company that started and it created this little device called a DSLR. And little did they know how much it would revolutionize video, right? They thought it was a cool thing for taking great pictures, but then it became a video device. In fact, it just took the world by storm, and everybody started shooting pictures with DSLR and video. And what happened was the knowledge around shooting great pictures on film was lost. You no longer see people with light meters or with, shooting even on film anymore. Nobody does. And what do we do to make up for that? How do people who have no knowledge about great photography make great photography happen? Yeah, Adobe Photoshop. And Adobe Photoshop came out and everybody's like, look, I don't need to know any of this stuff. I can just shoot with my phone and create a great photo. I can even make narrow depth of field and nobody knows the difference. And the essence of great photography was lost to the general public. And MZ came in and said, we need to restore this to people because people are crying out going, we don't actually know how to take good pictures. And so they did tour after tour after tour and went all around North America and educated people on how to do great theoretical photography once again, and it was restored. And you had Photoshop. What a great dual thing. Take great pictures and use Photoshop to make them even better. Well, then it became clear that filmmaking was lost because of editing tools and After Effects. None of these tools are bad. I can be lazy with how I shoot my motion pictures now. And then we created directing tours and editing tours, visual effects tours, moving cameras, cinematography tours. And then, of course, it became clear that there was nothing around for audio because of the incredible advent of audio tools and cleaning up tools and editing and all of that. So we did Sound Advice, and then it became clear to us that an 8-hour show was never going to get enough information out. It was only going to be able to scratch the very surface. And so we created what we originally thought was going to be 40 hours and we'd get it all handled. And then it was maybe 50. Well, maybe it's probably 70 now. And now, of course, it's 85 hours of everything you need to know to get your Hollywood level audience impact into your productions so that you can have the kind of impact in your marketplace that you've never had before. And that's what gets me excited about being able to bring all of this to you and to be able to share it with you on the cinemasound.com website, forum, and our secret Facebook page. So if you're watching this, I'm really, really excited that you're doing so. And it comes from a long legacy of folks who really want to bring the magic back to the independent media creative. Thanks for joining us. Much more to come. Recording in a car is the worst. You're like, but Mark, it's nice and quiet in there. What? No, it isn't. Especially if the car's running, especially if it's at 80 miles an hour, which you probably shouldn't be shooting in your car at 80 miles an hour, but I'll leave that to you. Even if it's on a trailer and you're like, well, the car isn't running, we're on a safety trailer and being towed. It's massive noise. To say nothing of the fact that the interior of the cabin, basically, if I can do this to my left,
it basically sounds like this.
It's all these micro primary and secondary reflections just banging around in there. And in fact, if you're in a car, you've got to do your ADR in the car. I mean, unless you do an impulse response inside the car. But let's take a look at what's required, or what I think is required, to get good recordings in a car. Whenever you put a microphone on a car, you're going to have to worry about many things, but none of the least of which is rumble, bumping, and all that kind of stuff. So you want to put some kind of a buffer between the diaphragm, microphone, and the body of the car. If you're putting it on a seat, you can get away with a little more because seats are kind of cushy. But if you're putting it on the hard frame or on the roof or something, especially that has some kind of give to it, you want to make sure you put something in between the microphone and that bumpy, awful, horrible car. You all obviously want to make sure that your low cuts are on for certain. Because you're like, well, but I want to record that engine noise. No, you don't. Put it in the sound effects section. Don't stick it in your dialogue. What you can do is take wind filters, if you have the right kinds, especially for lavs, and those can act like nice little spongy bits on top of the mic and do the same job, not only protecting the microphone from bumping on the car, but also from any wind, from air conditioners that are blowing, please God, no, and anything else. If you got to mic somebody in the back seat, there's a bunch of good ways of doing it. You can put them on the ceiling, and that's okay, but it's much better if you just put them on the headrests of the front seats. So the people are just talking right into them. Little lavs that are put there. Plus, if you're cameraing from the front, you can't possibly see them. Now, the issue comes when you have somebody that then leans forward into the center console. Then there's all kinds of things you can do. One of them, and we did this on our car scene, is we actually mic'd Natalie from the back shoulder of Josh, which worked out like swimmingly good. It was really great. But again, there's no rules, but these are just a couple of ways to get people in the back seat. Lots of options available for front seat miking. You can put it along the channel between the driver's side window and the actual windshield. You can hide stuff up in the the sun visor. You can do all kinds of that stuff. You can put it on the dash. But just remember this, anywhere you put it against a hard surface, you're gonna have reflection issues. Especially if you try to, we're just gonna wedge it down there, where a lot of people do, at the windshield and the end of the dash. Worst place possible. It's like putting a microphone down a seashell. What are you gonna hear in there? Just, all you're gonna hear is this, which is awful sounding. So as more forward as you can towards the actor as possible. Especially if there's not a lot of steering involved and you're towing them on a trailer, stick it on the steering wheel itself. Obviously you have to hide it, or you could just put it lavs on the actors themselves, and you're like, well, why wouldn't we do that? Well, you can, right up until somebody has to get out of a car, and there isn't any way to keep rustle from happening when somebody's getting up and moving around, or they have to turn around and address somebody in the back seat, or something happens or there's action. You're gonna have to use the hard mounts. Now remember this, you can use lavaliers all over the car, but lavaliers are omnidirectional, and they're gonna pick up as much of the car noise as there is car noise, and hopefully the dialogue part coming out of the noise hole of your actors is louder. But the best choice is hypercardioids, supercardioids, anything that is highly directional polar pattern. The problem is they're gigantic, and it's really hard to get them to be hidden. Now they make shorter hypercardioids. Obviously, the shorter the hypercardioid is, the more of the high frequencies it reflects. It has a kind of a hard time reflecting lower frequencies, and the lower frequencies is pretty much what you find in car noise. So it's a bad situation. If you can get a hypercardioid to get pointed at an actor's mouth, it's much, much better than using lavs if you can hide them. Look, attachment is as difficult in relationship as it is to attach microphones in a hot car with gaffer tape. And this is exactly what we ran into when we shot our car scene. It was a hot Texas day, and we gaff taped the snot out of it. And we were fortunate that only a few of the microphones fell down. So if you've got a really expensive microphone, you want to make sure that you've got some good way of clipping those in where it's heat impervious. You might try zip ties. Zip ties is also another really great way to get it up there and disengage them when you need to as well. Or maybe try staples. Well, it's really important to be able to know a little bit about how sound works in air, a little bit of physics, and then apply good practices to that, best practices to that, so that we don't ever run into this again. So let's understand a little bit about how all of this works. So imagine you're at a placid, smooth lake, and you're on one side of the shore, and you put your finger in to the glassy lake. You're going to create ripples, right? And those ripples really are just waves, and they kind of come out like this. And you've got the high part of the wave, and then down on the vacuum, the under part, right? The lower part. And that really is, in liquid form, exactly what's happening out here in air. High pressure levels and low pressure levels happening tens of thousands of times a second. Now, if you put your finger in the water, it's not happening tens of thousands of times a second, but you get the idea. And it's exactly the same thing in gas, air, even solids, it works that way. So now these ripples are coming out like this. Now imagine there was somebody on the other side of the shore that wanted to record those waves that I was making with my finger. No problem. We just put a little wave microphone on the other side of the shore, and I just do this for a while, and the waves eventually get out there, and it records it, and everything's great. But what if we want to record it on the other shore, halfway across the lake, a few meters from the lake, and really close, right where my little finger is going into the water? Well, we can do that, but you're not going to get all of those microphones to go up and down with the waves at the same time, because the waves are hitting them all, in different times, in different places. And so, some are going to be up here, some are going to be down there. If I took all of those microphones and summed their recorded value, or their recordings, you're not going to get this perfect reproduction of my finger and what it's doing in the water, you're going to get all kinds of stuff like this happening. And because all of those microphones start fighting each other because some are up and some are down and all this kinds of things with the waves. And that's what's called phase cancellation. And a really good example of what it looks like in water, but it happens again tens of thousands of times a second in air. What makes it worse is that I'm only doing one frequency like this, and that's happening. Imagine if I was doing this across 20,000 frequencies, which is your hearing, all at the same time, and those microphones are getting all different kinds of waves. It's just vastly complex, and some frequencies are getting canceled, others are not. It's just a huge mess. Well, how do we solve this problem? Well, I don't know who came up with it or the math involved. All I know is that we have to do what's called apply the law of threes. Law of thirds for some people, law of threes for me. So if I were wearing a lav, and I am wearing a lav right here, let's call it that the distance between this microphone and my mouth is about 6 inches. No problem. Then if I were wanting to record my mouth from another microphone somewhere, I couldn't just put it, let's say here. I might not even be able to put it on the other side. That's going to cause that phase cancellation issue. What I need to do is multiply the distance from my noise hole to the microphone by 3, and then I can plant a microphone there. So if this is 6 inches, we're just calling it 6 inches, then I would plant a microphone at 18 inches, and then at another 3. From that, right? What's 6 plus 3? 6, it's 3. Well, you can do the math yourself on that one, right? So 6 inches times 3. 6 inches times 3 again. 6 inches times 3 again. And then the theory is you're going to minimize that phase cancellation across all frequencies. Now, here's the problem. Even if I move my head like this, that's an inch of movement. I've just changed the gap. And if I have a fixed microphone out there or a boom pole, a microphone on a boom pole, they're not going to know to move with my head like this. And you're on set, this law of threes almost never is a functional law because everything is always in motion. In the studio, we use it all the time because we can plant microphones on stands and they're not going to move, which is great. Or in an arena or something like this where you can put microphones across a huge arena and make them happen like this. And also, if you get microphones that are far enough out, chances are they're not going to be the signal that they're recording is going to be masked supremely by the microphones that are much closer. So on set, we really don't use this, but we don't really even care to use it on set because of a rule that wipes out this law of thirds, and that is this. Only use one microphone at a time. One microphone for one sound source in the mix. Wait a minute, that's confusing. What does that mean? Look, use as many microphones as you want to record. Like I could just stack a host of microphones around me here like this, all different kinds and all different positions and different distances. I've got the option to use any of them if I want. But in the mix, I'm only going to choose one of them at a time. Now, I might even want to go one sentence at a time, depending on where my head is in this array. If I'm turning around, it gives me a better sound, whatever that is. I can choose them. And in the fix section and in the mix section, we're going to show you how to balance diverse microphones and positions so they all sound the same and nobody in the audience knows the difference. But I'm still only going to use one at a time. This one, ba 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 ba. This one, ba 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 ba. This one, ba 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 ba. This one, ba 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 ba. I fix it all in the mix because, practically speaking, there is no way to avoid phase cancellation, even if you have the rule of thirds, the law of thirds or threes, and you're applying it. Even then, on set in real life, you're still going to get phase cancellation. So, to sum up, use as many microphones as you want to record one sound, but only use one in the mix. Once you have all your microphones set, all the lavs are there and the drop-down mics are there, and you figured out how to put the hypercardioid on the shotgun to the right part of the noise hole for your actors, then we want to record, and we get as many microphones as we can recording discreetly into our recorder, right? From the Department C of the Redundancy Department. But in post, we only want to use one of these microphones. Now, you can change between the lavalier or the shotgun, and we're going to show you how to balance those out in the mix volume. But you only want to use one. And I know a lot of you are haters and some of you are doubters. Well, for those of you who are doubters, we're going to do a little demo with Becky and Melitza we all are wearing lavs right now from Sounic, and we've got the TM7 hypercardioid from Sounic, and Becky's going to talk and walk and toward Milica, and Milica's going to have the boom pole out and bring it back. Now, all of these are going to be summed. They're all going to be up, all these microphones, and see what it sounds like. Theoretically, you'd be like, well, it should sound great. You've got all these microphones. Well, let's see what happens.
Milica, I have to tell you, I'm a little worried about this duck thing. It's almost become an obsession with him. The other day we were at the park and he walked over to these ducks and he was like, hey, I'm talking here.
Okay, I'm not even from New York. You can hear immediately that sounds like crap. It sounds terrible. There's this weird whir as she walks and all kinds of problems, and especially as she walks past me in this midline. And what that is both a combination of phase cancellation, comb filtering, delays, and a really, really great example of inverse square law. So we're going to mute my microphone and let's try it again. See if it makes it any better.
So he walks up to these ducks and he just like seems to lose his mind. He goes, oh, inverse square law. And he starts yelling at them. And they just get all confused. And I hope they're intrigued enough to learn about that to visit his sets.
Wow. I don't want any ducks, no production sound at all, no production sound. So that's with her lav on, and the boom pole on. Still sounds terrible. Let's mute Milica's lav and see what happens.
So just a little tip if you're going anywhere with Mark Edward Lewis, if you can hire someone to produce some ducks, it makes for intriguing situations.
Intriguing indeed. Like duck soup. So that is what normally people do. They've got a lav and the boom pole on, and they think, oh, well, I'll just sum them all together. But even that sounds terrible. And why? Well, generally, this distance between the lav and her mouth isn't changing. I mean, it's changing a little bit, but not much. But even though Milica's doing her best at keeping the boom pole with Becky, it's having a shift in distance where the lav isn't. And it's creating comb filtering, delays, and all kinds of other things that we really don't like. And even in this setting, in a reasonably soundproof room, we're going to hear that kind of weird sound. So in the mix, only use one microphone. Record with lots of microphones because it gives you more choices. You could theoretically, if you'd had a RF hit as she went by, cut to my microphone as she went by here and get a pretty good recording if you wanted to. If something happened to her, something happened to that one. And then of course, as you got to here, you could have picked it up from her. In fact, when we talk about how to record a train in this education, we did that. A bunch of microphones and we panned between them as that truck went down and got a really, really great recording. But never were all of the microphones up all the time. So use a lot of microphones, but mix with only one at a time. Finding a location is hard. I hate finding locations. I refuse to do location managing. It is really hard work. And sometimes you just don't have the money you need to get the location you want. Sometimes you're stuck in a basement. It's the worst audio situation to be in, especially if you've got just 4 reflective walls. You've got a reflective ceiling that's parallel with the floor that may also be just like reflective cement. Stuff's happening all over the place in audio land. It's the worst. You've got reverb, you've got delay, you've got slap echo, phase issues, you've got warp field conduit ruptures, and all kinds of stuff that's both real and unreal that are going to mess you up in post. But if you have to be in this room, in a basement with 6 reflective walls, you're going to be in ADR. I hate ADR. Every room has its own audio characteristics. The more complicated the room, the more complicated the characteristics you have to deal with in recording and in post. For a room that's like this, we're down in a basement, 4 parallel walls this way, 2 parallel walls this way. These are the basics. In every scene that you shoot, the room that you're in is like another actor. You got your actors and stuff, but when the sound comes out of their mouths, it'll hit the room, the walls, the ceiling, the floor, and then come back highly colored depending on how the reflection or the not reflection of the room is. And that color sometimes is good, sometimes it's not good. It's like when you're in an orchestra, listening to an orchestra in a hall. An orchestra sounds great in a big hall. If you were to listen to the orchestra dry, it would sound kind of awful, but it's the nature of that hall, its reflectivity and delays, that make it sound great. But in a scene, there's no room, no matter where we are, that's ever going to make your actor sound better. In fact, it's going to make it sound worse. So we want to keep the sound of the room that we're in to a minimum. If I speak really softly, the energy from my voice is not enough to go all the way to the wall and come back and get into this microphone, although the direct sound from my voice is easily able to get picked up by this Rode Lav. But if I speak loudly, like I was in an argument on set, or there was a scene that required a lot of drama, you can hear it. The room comes back happily into this microphone, and I'm in ADR. And we know how I feel about that. So what we're gotta say is that the louder the dialogue is, the more the room will affect it and color it. And if it's too loud and the room's too reflective, you're gonna be in ADR. Another aspect of sound in a really reflective room are walls. Walls are awful, especially if you have to do a scene right next to one. Like imagine if you've got two actors and they gotta get close because they're having a lover's quarrel or something. I love you, baby, but. Okay, well, as I get closer, you can hear this kind of flubby, bassy, weird sound that's happening in my voice. Nothing's changed except I've gotten closer to this wall. And it's a weird sound. And as I start moving back and forth, it gets weirder. Like, what's happening here? It gets even more weird if I had a boom mic on top of it. This is called primary reflections. And we talk about reflections in a big room as a problem, but in a micro sense, when you're close to something like this, it's even more of a problem. Well, look, don't tell anybody, but when I was a kid, I used to spend my youth making the Millennium Falcon take off with my breath and my voice using micro reflections. Check it out. It works really well on a reflective wall like this. Watch. See, it's pretty super cool when you're trying to take the Millennium Falcon off, but it's not cool when you're trying to make a scene with the actors that you like. So we want to avoid this kind of sound, even if we have to get this close to the wall. And some easy ways of doing that are being against a wall that's been painted with matte paint, or better yet, hang a tapestry that just kind of absorbs the sound. Anything you can do to keep this thing from happening is good for you in post. Another aspect of really reflective rooms, the worst aspect, especially if they've got parallel walls, is what's called slap echo. It's different than delay, but slap echo is like really, really fast in the milliseconds. And you can hear it in this room. I'm in the dead middle of this basement. Hear the brrr. It's really, really fast. Here's another example of it. You hear that pitch? That's actually the sound. I'm in the same room. I moved a little bit forward, but it's ringing in this stairwell to this basement, going ba 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 like this, and then coming back to my microphone. It's a drag, and you can hear it if I get loud. It's still there. You're in ADR. I'm in ADR. So slap echo, it's the worst. It's gonna put you into ADR. And there's no real conventional recording way to fix it. And there's certainly no good way anyway, to do it in post. Not RX, not Audition, nobody. But there is some simple, easy, cheap ways of fixing this. This is a wall flat. Simple 4x8 plywood, little frame on the back. You set it up with some feet. Put some sandbag, beach on the back of it so it doesn't fall on anybody and hurt anybody. What it's doing here is it's taking this, we're still in the basement, still very reflective, and it's absorbing the sound on this semi-porous surface. So check it out now. It's a lot better. We still have some little reflection bits, but it's way, way less. But there's something else we can do with it to make it even better. Thanks, Reed. Come over here. We're just gonna do this. About 10 degrees. Move the beach so it doesn't hurt anybody. Now check it out. No slap at all. It's still a reverberous room, it's true, but we can get rid of that with plugins and post. Slap echo, we cannot. All we've done is move this wall flat about 10 degrees, one angle. What's happening now is that the sound's coming from my voice, hitting the wall, hitting this flat, and no longer being reflected back at me again to create that slapping echo delay thing. It's just being sent around the room and dissolving. Just by a little piece of wood, an incredibly simple solution for a wildly complicated problem. Dope. Well, there's another massive chapter of information that's just, wow, probably going to take a couple of watchings to get it all, but hey, it's Cinema Sound and it's your reference. We can't wait to hear what your results are from this chapter and can't wait to see you in the next one. But before then, we may see you on set.